1976, and she was a gift for the 100th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, which was signed on that day. The torch is the torch of enlightenment. The robe that she wears reminds us that the origins of democracy are in Greece. She's incredibly symbolic, also incredibly tall, which is something that I don't think we can appreciate when we're right there in front of her, because we don't get a lot of sense of context. She's the height of a 30-story building. She's 300 feet tall. And back in 1886, when she arrived, there was no such thing as a 30-story building. Not here, not anywhere. By 1899, we had our first 30-story building, tallest in the world. It happened to be here in Manhattan. But from 1886 to 1899, there was no building as tall as she was. So it really is an incredible sight for those people to see as they were arriving at Ellis Island, all of them anxious about what lay ahead with those tests and those trials and tribulations and that determination whether they get to stay or not. I don't know, you know, I often say, you can imagine so-and-so, but I don't know if we can really imagine that type of anxiety, because I mean, maybe some of us can. It's been generations since my family has settled here in this country, but if you have a history that is much shorter than that in terms of going someplace new and starting a new life, perhaps you can imagine. But the people who were coming here had left behind everything. And again, at Ellis Island, we were talking about the people who were really sort of scrimping and saving. And this voyage is not just that 3-week voyage across the Atlantic. That was the final stage of an incredible journey. It would have began when you said goodbye to your little stone home on the side of a mountain and left behind your fields and your animals and the rest of your family and journeyed down the mountain to a dirt road where you'd get on a wagon that would take you to a town where you'd get on a train. From that train, you'd go to a small city maybe, get on a ferry boat or a small steamer, tramp steamer that would take you to the port, where you would depart on that steamer across the Atlantic. So this was a tremendous voyage. And you brought with you basically one box, one bag, one suitcase per person. And I don't mean each of those things. I mean just one thing, because when you think of a voyage like that, and you remember that suitcases with wheels are a recent invention, you had to carry all of this with you. And so you brought the barest minimum, and when you came here, you began with virtually nothing. You began from scratch. Take a look over to the right. This is Governor's Island. I've got a National Park Service ranger who's explaining to people a little bit about Castle Williams, which is that fortification there built to defend the harbor against the British Navy in anticipation of the War of 1812. Now, Governor's Island used to be an Army base, but nowadays it's a New York City public park, and they do all sorts of cool things there. If you're going to be around for the weekend, it's at its best on the weekends. Come on Friday, and Bike and Roll will give you 1 free hour of cycling around the island. Saturday and Sunday, there's always cool stuff going on. I think this weekend is a 1920s jazz age lawn party. We just had, last weekend was really crazy. Last weekend, 4 different events had to share the island for the weekend. The first was a vintage Volkswagen festival at the southern tip. We also had a yoga get-together, a hip-hop concert with Lupe Fiasco, and a Civil War reenactment. And they were all on the island for that weekend. Coming up, we have an amazing, it's called the Rock the Bells Festival, and it's gonna, I think it's 4 stages, 30 acts, including Erykah Badu, Ms. Lauryn Hill, Black Star, Cypress Hill, Nas. It's going to be an unbelievable weekend of hip-hop. That's coming up a little bit later on in this month. We've also got Dave Matthews and the Roots that are going to be here also later on this month. And all sorts of cool stuff happening at Governor's Island. Over on the right, that's the Red Hook Container Port over on the Columbia Street waterfront. We've got a container ship there that's getting loaded up, just arrived today. I know that because I was out on the water yesterday and it was not here then. Chances are it's probably going to, let's see, is it loading or unloading? kind of slow. If they're loading up, and I have a feeling that they're loading up. If they're loading up, they'll be gone by the end of the day, and they are loading up. So if you come out with for the night tour, which is going to be me again, 7:45 tonight, we're probably going to see that ship departing. It does not take long. That's the big change in our harbor, in our port. Port of New York, it used to be one of the most important, busiest ports in the world. Now it's relegated to being simply the busiest port on the East Coast. It doesn't even come close to comparing to our West Coast ports. But it used to be huge, and all of this waterfront here on our left used to be surrounded by ships. In the age of sail, the age of steam, our island was surrounded by piers and wharves and ships that were loading and unloading, and longshoremen and stevedores and dock workers. It would take them a week to unload the ship when it arrived, and a week to load the ship back up again. Huge change when we make the shift to containerization, because now with containerization, it's 24 hours to unload, 24 hours to reload. The ship is back at sea in 2 days, 48 hours. It's an incredible turnaround now, and it's what helps the speed of this global economy keep pace with manufacturing and the demand as well. Hey, take a look to the left. You're going to be looking down Wall Street in just a moment. Look for the church steeple over on the left, right by this white brick building stacked up like a wedding cake. Look for the church steeple. There it is. That is Wall Street, and there it goes. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're looking for an impressive experience on Wall Street, you've got to get down there on foot. You've got to stand in front of the Stock Exchange, which is actually on Broad Street. You got to stand in front of the statue of George Washington, depicted taking the oath of office, which is what he did at that spot on April 30th, 1789, on Wall Street, which is where our nation's first capital was located. On Wall Street, amazingly enough. 1789 to 1790. Here comes the Brooklyn Bridge, 14 years of work, $14 million to build. Testament to the genius. Yeah, this stone bridge, exactly. The towers are stone and stone alone. There is no steel or iron infrastructure inside. Now we've got a little, looks like doing a little bit of maneuvers here. The NYPD has a bunch of their maritime units underneath the bridge. We saw them on our way out from South Street Seaport. Hold on, we got some waves underneath us. That's why you